Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Tuesday, the 23rd day of June. Here we go. We're going back to a topic we were working on just a day or two ago, and that was the topic about not being mavaza ochlin, not shaming foods. And let's get to hamotzi. There are people who, when they pass out the challah at their table from person to person, they kind of like throw the piece of bread to person to person to person across the table. And lechatchila, that means in the first way, the best way of doing it, it's not the best way to do it. That is a little bit like throwing food. It is throwing food, and it's some are lenient about it, but it's best lechatchila to try not to. That lechatchila means your best way is to try not to have that be the way you dish out the bread at your Shabbos table. Now, you know that people throw bags of candy or food at a bar mitzvah boy or a chassan in the shul, and why isn't that considered a problem of shaming the food? Some of the poskim say that it's not considered a problem because we know that children are right there at the ground where it's all falling, and that they're planning to pick it all up seriously, and so nothing is going to waste. Others wonder about the fact that sometimes there are little teeny pieces of cookie or wafers inside of the bags, and that's a little bit more like bread, and we don't throw bread, so why is it okay to have those little bags, cookies, wafers inside? And some say that because it's in a bag, it's not really going to get smushed on the floor, and therefore it's totally fine to have little pieces of wafer inside of those little bags that are being thrown at the chassan. Okay, so that's why people are kind of more lenient. And the other reason is they say because the pieces of wafer that are in there are usually way smaller than an olive size, and so they're not considered as significant as it's more chunky a piece like an olive size that we wouldn't want to be caught throwing around. Next, if you have human food, like a good piece of white bread, and you want to choose to feed that to your animals, there are a lot of poskim who say that that's considered sort of wasting the food. That's human level food, and you're lowering it to the use where the animal didn't have to have fine, refined white bread for it to eat. And so having your fine, beautiful white bread being fed to your dog is considered a bit of a waste of the specialness that you could have been doing with that bread. So the Machzis HaShekel talks about how we give bread to birds, and he said, you see people put out bread for birds. People do it on Shabbos Shir and everything. And why is that considered permissible? That's human food being served to birds. And he says that the reason that we're kind of lenient on that is because we know that it's bread that the humans are done with. It's leftovers, it's crumbs, it's pieces that humans aren't eating, and that's why we're kind of more lenient about feeding those pieces of bread to the birds. Now, some say that if you want to feed your human food to your own animal, that's when it gets a little bit more lenient, and therefore, if someone wants to feed a piece of his bread to his own animal, there is some leniency to do that. And lastly, the Gemara does say, sure, you're going to think, well, I could have figured this out myself, but the Gemara says it clearly in Brachas on Daf Ches, and says that you should not cut or slice a piece of meat while it's on your hand. The reason is because it's obvious. You may end up cutting yourself, but besides the fact that you may hurt yourself, the blood would then go onto that, the human blood would go onto that meat and would make the meat unkosher, and that too is a waste. That's how it got into our topic here, so that besides it being not safe, it's also going to waste that piece of meat, and therefore that's reason number 2 for not being allowed to cut meat while it's sitting on your hand. So just don't do that, okay? Thanks for logging on. Log on again tomorrow for more. Bye-bye.